Thanks for all joining us tonight. My name is Steve Bardak, and some of you may have read the article that I wrote regarding insurance loss. I lost my house in 2016, and it was a pretty horrific process, and I learned a lot about the insurance claims process, and I wrote that up when the fires happened to try to get as much information out to people as possible so that they can make informed decisions in terms of how to manage their insurance claim. Over the last 3.5 weeks or so, I've done about 100 conference calls with people, and I've noticed kind of two different responses of the adjusters at large. One group says, you're covered, you're covered, you're covered. And when I asked the question, I said, great, did they pay your policy limits? The answer is no, they haven't, or they've paid a little bit or something like that. The other group of people have had experiences where the adjusters are trying to minimize the extent of the damage and trying to bring in low-end contractors or to put them in cheap hotels or things like that. So when I went through my process, my adjuster very early on in the process started to behave in ways that were disingenuous. And I went out and interviewed a number of law firms, and I retained the law firm of Michael Childress and Partners, Michael sitting to my right. And when the fire happened, I called Michael and said, hey, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to need a lot of information, and we probably need to get this information out quickly. So I wrote the article, and just by a show of hands, anyone here have read it, the article? Okay, good. Hopefully, did you find the information helpful? Oh, it's an article. No, if you want, give me your email address, and I'll email it out tonight to anybody that wants it. It's a 4.5-page article of my learnings going through the insurance process and my recommendations and how to deal with insurance adjusters. And what I learned is the insurance adjusters are not your friend. They're not here to write big checks and give you full fair value unless you're very, very lucky. And I know one guy here that is very, very lucky, and that's great. In the 100 or so conference calls that I've done, people are not having that experience, and that is just not okay. The process is contentious. I actually brought a copy of my initial claims folder here. This binder is what was put together to support my claim. And from the first offer of settlement to my final settlement, it was up almost 10x and 10x. So they gave me a lowball offer, and they brought in a whole bunch of biased experts and tried to substantiate the offer. And you should look through it. It's all different reports and pictures and documentation and everything to refute the lowball experts that they brought in to try to cram down a fair value claim for my loss. And you're welcome to look through it. Brought it here so that people can understand what is involved sometimes in terms of getting the full fair value for your claim.
I've asked many questions, but I've done a lot of homework before coming here. I wanted to know, when I went before the adjuster, I wanted to have some equal footing. So it's great.
Explain the format of the meeting.
Oh. Sure enough, the estimate, he had an estimate ready at 2 hours, and I came home and he cut me short $25,000 on my gardening alone. They said I reached the limit. I looked at my policy. I ordered a copy, emailed over to me this morning. And there's nothing that puts a limit on my policy.
Yeah, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go down with some opening remarks in terms of, you're going to hear from Michael Childress, who's the attorney that I used his law firm, and Brian Kabatek. And then Steve Selleck is,
Two adjusters, one is, we understand, working for the insurance company, but there's a term,
public adjuster, yeah. And we're going to, and after we have the opening remarks, we're going to break into breakout groups where we can do Q&A, and you guys can ask as many questions as you want, and we can, try to give you some information so you can make better choices.
well, I just want to know whether.
Let them do their presentation.
I'd like to stand on to even start, but it appears almost from the start, you're telling me that it took this size binder in order to convince an adjuster.
For my claim, it did. I mean, every claim is going to be different, and so, so since the fires have started, I've been working full-time trying to get this information out. I've become of counsel to Michael Childress's firm, and I think it's very important that you come into this with the notion that you should not blindly trust your insurance company. This is going to be a process, and you need to be prepared to be able to defend the value of your claim. And sometimes you're going to want help, and then you should decide what the right path is. But information is important. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Michael Childress.
Hello, everybody,
That's for the camera.
and welcome. As Steve said, my name is Michael Childress, and I'm an attorney. Please don't hold that against me. I've been representing people with their insurance policy, on their insurance policy issues for 37 years now. And when I started out, it was not a full-time job because insurance companies paid claims. That all changed in the mid-'90s when they redesigned their claims processes to hit financial results as opposed to paying the benefits that are owed under the insurance policies. Seen about every trick in the book. Have responded to numerous disasters, starting in 1992 with Hurricane Andrew down in Miami. We're having an incredible spate of disasters the last 3 months here in the United States with, I don't know what's going on with the 10th of the month, but the 10th of September was Hurricane Flo. The 10th of October was Hurricane Michael. The 10th of November was the camp and the Woolsey fires. And then, yesterday or the day before yesterday was the earthquake up in Alaska. So these disasters all follow I know it's very distressful. They kind of follow a similar process where the insurance claim is involved. The insurance industry is in chaos as well. You'd think they'd be better organized given, the number of disasters and given their experience, but they're not. They bring in adjusters from all over. They change adjusters. It's hard to get an adjuster to call you. Nobody really knows what the rules are. Nobody knows when they're going to be able to get back in. There's just a lot of doubt and uncertainty, and that has its toll on you and brings you to your knees. And you tend to make bad decisions when you're under that kind of pressure. We know how it's supposed to work. I'm here with my colleague, Brian Kabatek. Brian is a very well-known trial attorney here in Los Angeles. We've worked together on disasters for 15 years. And we're collaborating here in Malibu to help you all get back to where you're supposed to be. And so I look forward to speaking with you and answering your questions during the breakout session. And I'll hand it over to Brian here.
Thank you, Michael, and good evening to all of you here. I'm sorry that we have to meet under these circumstances. Michael is right. I'm a trial lawyer. I have sued insurance companies for mass disasters all over the place, including here in Southern California. My office is based in downtown Los Angeles. I am currently the president of the Los Angeles County Bar Association, and we're trying to also do an outreach program through the bar to other lawyers to teach them about insurance, because the fact is that many lawyers don't completely understand insurance any more than most of you. It is somewhat complicated. It's a specialty. It's a specialty in the practice. The truth is, with some guidance and help and assistance, probably 90% of all claims will be paid ultimately. Not necessarily on time and not necessarily without some heartache, but only about 10% will ever need to have a lawsuit. But we can help you tonight by giving you some answers about the laws in California that govern insurance companies. It's one of the most regulated businesses in California. It's the only business that has an elected official, elected by the people of the state of California to oversee it exclusively. So that's where I was today. Earlier today was up in Sacramento. And it is very, very interesting how the insurance industry works. And the best line that anybody ever gave me was the outgoing insurance commissioner, Dave Jones, once turned to me and said, you know, the thing about the insurance industry is they don't like anyone to tell them what to do. And what we'll talk about when we have an opportunity to talk with you tonight, if you have questions, is a little bit about some of the things you need to look out for, the warning signs, what happens with an insurance claim. And what I've seen happen from not doing this is quite as, did you say 37 years, Michael? 37? I'm a little closer to 29, 30. But what I have come to realize is that if any of you ever read the book by Kubler-Ross about death and dying, the 5 stages of death, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, that's a little bit like your insurance claim, because you have to be vigilant for when you realize that your insurance company is taking advantage of you, because so many of us are hypnotized by the media and the advertisements on television about the good hands people or fast, friendly, fair, or whatever the motto is of these insurance companies when they're taking your dollars, your hard-earned money to pay for policies. That it's sometimes hard for people to realize or recognize the signs, the warning signs about what their insurance company is doing. So I don't mean to completely trash the insurance industry. There will be people who get paid and have a relatively good experience with it. The other thing you have to realize, especially if you have a total loss, is my guess is that more than 90% of the people in California are underinsured. They don't have enough insurance. So the job that people that work with you or you have to look out for is get every penny you possibly can out of that insurance policy, because ultimately at the end of the day, it may not be enough money to completely rebuild a house if you have a total loss. So a lot more to say. We could probably go on here for quite some time, but we'll be in the breakout rooms and be available to answer your questions.
I got in this business about going on 30 years come February. My whole family's developers, went to school for architecture and engineering. And what I found consistently from being an insurance preferred vendor back in the late 80s, early 90s to the one that actually started to align myself with the policyholder was what changed was they stopped paying what they actually owed. So in the fire, having handled going up to close to 14,000 claims, the first step is obviously the insurance policy. The 4 corners of what that policy dictates, those are the rules of engagement. That's what you have within those 4 corners. The attorneys are the ones that actually step in, take a look at that, and say, here's where the fence, here's where the boundaries are at, here's what you have, here's what your coverages are. The next step is what we do is we prepare the forensic property damage scope and cost of repair report. That means looking at that building and to see how it was impacted. What experts are needed to come and take a look at that? Is there burnt embers on the tile of the top of the roof? Is there ash and soot that blew up under the roof tiles? Is there ash and soot that blew up into the attic insulation through the dormer vents? Is it now trickling down through the can lights? Or is it sitting on top of the speakers? Do those have to be replaced? Is there heat and fire damage to the exterior of the stucco? Had that affected the waterproof paper? How did it impact the windows? Have a glazing expert come out. All the different details that come with that. Having an environmental consultant step in and do a survey, both inside and outside, as to what are the levels of contamination, what is in the home. There's some insurance companies that say, hey, you know what? It's not contaminated, just clean it, and let's go ahead and do a smell test. Well, that's very subjective. And if me and you disagree and you think that it smells and I think it doesn't smell, we bring another third person, this is actually in writing, that third person makes the smell test. Really? You know, I mean, and then you have the other part of it, which is on the premium policies where they're saying, no, go ahead, bring the environmental consultant, we'll pay for it. Have them write a protocol on how to restore and remove whatever contaminants are identified. Once the restoration is complete, then have the environmental consultant come out and do a clearance, have them pull tests again, and actually provide a clearance certificate for occupancy. I've talked to Matt about this and how important this is in the real estate world to have a clearance so that if you resell the property or if you have a tenant living in there, you don't have liability, be it your workplace, be it your home. And the same protocols that we write on hospitals are the same protocols in the home. Why shouldn't it be the same environment? It should be the same level of cleanliness. I wouldn't want my kid who has autism, high functioning, but yet he's got an autoimmune disorder. So to him, dust, anything like those foreign objects, he flares up. He gets these allergies, he gets this asthma that comes, a croup type cough where I have to put a nebulizer on him. Everybody reacts to different toxins at different levels. So I treat it like it was my own home when I put these reports together. But it's important to not stick your head in the sand. This is your claim, not the insurance company's claim. Take a look, get educated. What are the right steps? Ask the questions. It's free to get a second opinion. So a lot of people that say, oh, my insurance company's been good to me. I'm like, how many claims have you had? Well, none. It sounds like you've been pretty good to them for the last 20 years paying your premium. So why don't you just take the opportunity to say, here's what they offered. Take a look. Did I miss anything? I'm sure after all your years of doing this year after year all over the country and all over the world, from hurricanes to firestorms, explosions, fire losses, whatever it may be, you may have some knowledge in this thing to provide advice. If they paid you everything, there's nothing for us to do. But if there's stuff that's owed, wouldn't you want to know? Just kind of the wise choice. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I missed your name.
Steve? Steve. Yes, with SRP or Strategic Response Partners. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Doug Burge. I'm a local architect here, and I really know nothing about insurance, but I'm really here to talk on hope, and hopefully we can give you some guidance on what we are forecasting to get from our esteemed city and what we have been doing as a group of local architects and builders and contractors and engineers who have been navigating the codes and the things for the city for so many years of frustration. And hopefully this event will cause our leaders to be aware of how dire this situation is. There's a meeting tomorrow, the first city council meeting that is actually after the fire event. It's at City Hall tomorrow at 6:30. We've been in constant contact. I've been behind the lines, the day after the fire started with a number of us that came in and trying to run relief efforts and trying to just do what everyone was trying to do, was survive, and it was more humanitarian. And there's so many wonderful stories that have just come out of this of just how amazing our community is. But at this point, there are some serious discussions that need to be made. Obviously, you coming to the special meeting today was very important because insurance, there are those that even didn't even have insurance. I've been meeting many people every day that are going through this, and met somebody yesterday, believe it or not, that you're not required to get insurance. You require your insurance if you have a bank loan on your house. Most people have a bank loan on your house. This person had bought their property for cash. They were driving out of here in the evacuation. They were buying insurance on the phone. Because you imagine that conversation. Hello, 1-800-INSURANCE. I'd like to insure my home. I'm being evacuated. Can I go see it tomorrow? Hopefully. I don't know if it's going to be here tomorrow. But, that's like the most amazing condition, but those are real life conditions. We're going to see it all, and we're seeing it all. And we're already starting to meet with so many people. As another point, Michael, who's the Michael Childress at the end of the table here, my wife and I actually own Malibu Beach House, who most of you guys know, the home store at Trancas. And I never had a retail store before. I don't know if a smoke damage is okay for a pillow or for a candle or for a lotion. So there's just too many details. I didn't know. I think I have a good policy, but I said, can you please help us? He says, I got this one. He's met with the adjuster from day one. He's taken care of it. So my wife, who is trying to get herself together and try to cope like, you guys are with dealing with businesses and homes, Michael's company just took it. And so I'm more than happy to pay whatever they can get more on top of what we're owed, but it's just too complicated. I'm a professional, and I think I know a lot of things, but you got to delegate where you don't know, and you got to go that route. And this team right here has been proven to me, it's like, I'm so glad we make this decision, because there's so many things going on, anxiety, grief, all these real life emotions, and they're just overwhelming to us. And as I've been meeting with new people to build, they said, I cannot keep myself together if I think about what happened. What can I do to give me hope? And that's what we've been doing. I said, go think about what your new pictures are going to be for your new house, and let me give you some names of some people that can help, which is exactly what we're doing. I'm wearing a hat right now, which we've created a website called reboo.com, and it's basically right now populated with humanitarian and helpful advice. Just what do we do from these last 2 weeks, which we're all just been, whether you're sandbagging or taking care of your house or what you need to do. We're eventually taking care of that and trying to put into English what our codes are allowing us to do. So just, there's going to be a number of people wanting to go to the city council meeting tomorrow night. And there's a lot of people that want to bring torches, and they want to be, lined up in the parking lot, and maybe they're going to have a little bit of an attitude, and they damn well should have an attitude. I don't know what it was like when Custer saw those Indians come over the hill, but he probably said, oh shit, we don't have enough guns and muskets, and we're overwhelmed. And it's exactly what was happening with this fire. They were overwhelmed by this massivity of 20-mile-an-hour fire line, and all of us that were all behind here fighting with our neighbors realize that. So we're sitting here today with this group that definitely can be helping out. When I break into my small group, I'm also going to be introducing a group that's, there's a local builder, one of my partners in another business, which is Dave Charvet and Nathan Jones of Jones Builders, and they've formed an association, a new company called Made in Malibu, and they're working with two associates that I know well and work with, which is Sameta and Luca, which is this group over here. And what they've associated is say, what about the people that can't afford the fancy architect, or don't have the fancy builder, or maybe they had an insurance policy that their home is worth $3 million, all they got is $1 million, or their home is worth $1 million and only got $300,000, whatever it is. There is a group now being formed that can say, help you. Maybe I just need a drafting person to maybe convert the plans I like. We've labeled everything down from the level of what everyone wants. Somebody says, I hated that old home. I'd love to have a new home. There's different people with different attitudes, but we have groups and we've got professionals already set up. Lester Tobias, who's another co-architect, has been in the city, I don't know, Lester, as long as I am, or we've all been here a long time. He's here, and we've, just for you guys to know that just the basic citizenry, we've been able to create, as much as we can, our best efforts of the best ideas possible to show to the city and to get it to the top. And we've been working with the top all the way down from the city council. December 10th is when we get 2 new council members, which is Mikey and Karen. And then we're not really able to, they're not able to conduct any new business until January. It is what it is. I don't know what they're going to talk about tomorrow. Maybe we're going to hand out candles and sing. I have no idea. But we're going to be able to hopefully look at this as we're all in this together. Us locals, between every realtor, from every professional, from a homeowner to everybody. It's like what we've realized these last 2 weeks is that it's us in this room. They're going to help each other. And hopefully our leaders are going to take that information and make the right choices. And then that point from there, which is all the rebuild issues, will hopefully translate down to better governance for those of us that have been trying to remodel our mailbox for 9 months. So it's just, it's something that can be done. We're excited to do it, and we're going to be here to help you guys kind of wade through, at least on the city processes, and any questions you have kind of on the contractor, building, and engineering part. So thank you on that.
We have enough cord? Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand over here so I don't choke one of my colleagues with this cord. My name is Doug Quinn. I am the Executive Director of the American Policyholder Association. We're a 501c4 nonprofit lobbying group. And what we do is we stand up for consumers who are being defrauded by their insurance company and by the engineering and adjusting firms that they hire. A lot of people don't understand that. The insurance industry has gaslighted us all to believe that insurance fraud is only perpetrated by the consumer against the insurance company. I promise you, it goes both ways. So what we are here to do is we work with it, and my personal story is this. I've sat exactly where you are sitting right now. I lost my home and everything I owned in a natural disaster. I know what it's like to go to your home that morning and look and say, oh my God, it's all gone. What am I gonna do now? And I was not in this industry, I was not involved in any way, shape, or form, but as part of doing that, I thought I'm fine. It'll be inconvenient, but I've got the maximum legal amount of insurance that I can buy. And guess what? My insurance company paid me 37 cents on the dollar. 6 years ago, my home was destroyed in Hurricane Sandy, and I am still not home now. And you'll hear a lot of that from people. It's the dirty little secret that no one tells. Your life is now going to be divided into before the fire and after the fire. And you will always look at it that way. So you've got to start looking at things a new way. So we talked a little bit about, Steve said, like, well, what do you think would be most helpful to talk to people about? And what I'll say is personal resiliency, how to get through a crisis like this, and how to manage and how to handle it with dignity and grace and not be taken advantage of. So what I'll say is this. There's a couple of little points that I'll tell you that I think could help, and then we can talk more later. But I really want to encourage you to work with these gentlemen that are up here. Because the number one thing I will tell you is don't go it alone. Don't think you can figure it out alone. You do not have the ability. I promise you, I was a sharp guy. I'm a financial advisor for 30 years. I managed millions and millions of investment dollars, and that did not make me an expert at fighting an insurance company. That did not make me an expert at rebuilding a home. That did not make me an expert on all the little things that come out of the woodwork. So I spent 6 years fighting the insurance industry, fighting the federal government, fighting my state, fighting disaster recovery that is completely dysfunctional. This country does disaster recovery very wrong. We've got 200 years of experience. I think we'd be better at it. We're not. So you got a couple things that you need to know. One, don't succumb to how overwhelming this is. And it is overwhelming, right? Most people aren't home. You're worried about where you're sleeping. You're worried about how you're going to deal with this. You've been through a crisis. You are in crisis. You are experiencing trauma. You'll see a lot of instances of people experiencing PTSD, of children's schoolwork suffering, of people having marital problems, financial problems, increased dependence on drugs and alcohol. We've seen all of this happen over and over. So be very conscious that you are in crisis and you're not in the best position to make decisions. You might have been very, very sharp a month ago. It's a different story now. So don't be afraid to rely on professionals who do this for a living. And I don't make any money off this. I don't even get paid for doing this. This is something that I do because I think it's important. I wish people had stepped in and told me some of these things. So I spend a lot of time in disaster zones. This will be my 3rd disaster zone this month that I'll be spending time with people, and I see the same thing over and over. So be conscious of how dysfunctional. You think everyone's got it together. Doug touched on it. You think that, our political leaders they're on top of things. Their systems are all in place. They're not. Don't be overwhelmed by how dysfunctional it is. Expect it to happen. Don't settle for what your insurance company gives you. Their job is to give you some shut up and go away money. And you don't know, right? How many people here know how much it takes to fix their roof? How much it takes to repair their home or completely rebuild their home? What does it take to remediate for lead or asbestos? What does it take to rebuild a home at the current codes, not what it was 20 years ago when your home was built? We have no clue. So the insurance company says, here's a check for $1 million. The adjuster acts like he's a hero, as was mentioned here. And you're like, oh, cool. But then when you go start to talk to builders and find out the reality, the full scope of your project and what you need to accomplish, and because you tried to go it alone, you realize that it's not enough money. So don't settle. Let's just do this. One of the conversations I had with Steve was like, maybe we can talk about like what kind of red flags you should look for that if the insurance company is defrauding you, if your insurance company is cheating you. And you know what we came up with? Let's go the other way around. Let's assume they're shorting you. Let's just go into this assuming that they're going to cheat you. They are not your friends. They're not your good neighbors. You're not in good hands. All these TV commercials, it's just propaganda. You're going to see the other side of the insurance industry now, I promise you. You flip a coin, it lands 50-50 heads or tails. With this, I don't have people together and learn how to work together, because when you work together, you coalesce power. You get the attention of the politicians and the press, and when you coalesce power, you get a seat at the table. And the saying we use is, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. So pay very close attention to who's stepping up and who's organizing and who's calling meetings and who's getting people together, and get involved. And then the last thing is, again, understand that you're in crisis. Understand that there's a lot going on. This is not going to be over in a week. It's not going to be over in a month. It's not going to be over in a year. Please use a professional that knows how to do this and fights these kind of battles every day. And work with each other and find the people in your community that can't defend themselves, and it's your job to stand up for them. Again, we are the American Policyholder Association. A lot of what I talked about today really doesn't have a lot to do with what we do. But if you want to look us up, you can look us up on Facebook. apassociation.org is our website, or the American Policyholder Association. What we do is we uncover fraud perpetrated by the insurance industry, the engineers and the adjusters that they hire. We have it prosecuted. I meet with attorneys general all over the country. We work on prosecuting these cases, not just fighting them in civil court, and then we move forward with publicizing it to let people know this is happening. You're not the only one. This is happening to a lot of people. Thank you.